easy choice for Time Magazine. President-elect Donald Trump, the
Caitlin Clark is
2024
Athlete of the Year?
Person of the Year.
Oh, Person of the Year.
Person of the Year for President-elect Donald Trump. Joe Rogan, Elon Musk also considered. Now, think about the last 4 years and then the public perception now. That's what I think here. And I also think no-brainer. You know, like, I was amazed, Chad, during the election, the months leading up to the election, and then we had the assassination attempt. And how little that was mentioned after kind of the news rush of it. You know, it was mentioned, but it wasn't prominent because of the 24-hour news cycle or whatever. I mean, think about, 20 years ago if that happened and how much we would be glued to the television with the coverage of that. And we were, but not for long. I mean, even in the debates, it wasn't really brought up. But that alone, given the status of Donald Trump and, the massive turnout for him and the wave that we saw in the election process across all of the states and what we're seeing in the House and the Senate. This is an easy choice. And they sell a lot of magazines doing this too.
Yeah, and it's not always necessarily a vote of confidence or a good thing with Time's Person of the Year.
Right.
So keep that in mind. I haven't read the article. I don't know that it's been published yet to see how glowing of a review it is of Donald Trump. But it is a magazine that had Adolf Hitler as Man of the Year in 1938, Joseph Stalin in 1939, Joseph Stalin again in 1942. Now, in between that, they had Winston Churchill and FDR in 40 and 41. So a mixed bag.
It's the second time Trump has won it.
Person of the Year. Yeah.
Also, put the photo back up of the cover. This is a great picture.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Like, you want it to look, I mean, this is alpha. That's the way to describe it.
I'm interested just looking at the Person of the Year from 2000 on. George W. Bush, Rudy Giuliani in 2001, post 9/11. 2002 was the Whistleblowers, a bunch of Enron and corporate scandals, people who blew the whistle on it. 2003, the American Soldier. George W. Bush in 2004, again. Vladimir Putin, 2007. Barack Obama, 2008. Mark Zuckerberg in 2010. Barack Obama again, 2012. Pope Francis, 2013. Donald Trump in 2016, as you mentioned, Hutton. In 2017, it was the Me Too silence breakers. The women who blew the whistle on Me Too.
For Person of the Year.
Greta Thunberg in 2019.
Okay.
Joe Biden 2020. It was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in 2020. Interesting. Elon Musk 2021. Zelensky in 2022. Taylor Swift last year. Boy, Taylor Swift has to hate this. From Taylor Swift as Person of the Year to Donald Trump the next year.
After she just wraps up her $1 billion plus tour.
Boy, what a 4-year stretch here of just different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, 2021.
He was one of the runners
like
up. Like
word
apparently.
association, if I say these names, immediately take your mind to right or left.
Yes.
And what person this falls in. Elon Musk, 2021. Vladimir Zelensky, 2022. Taylor Swift, 2023. And then Donald Trump, 2024. It's like a red wave sandwich with the buns being the conservatives of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and sandwiched in the middle is Zelensky and Taylor Swift.
I mean, and
fascinating.
But also think about how much it was mentioned in the sandwich.
Yeah.
Compared to, the bookends that you're referencing there.
Yeah.
This is going to sell.
And all jokes aside, it is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Considering that the guy has won a second term and it's not sequential. It's separated by another presidential term and the assassination attempts that he survived and everything else. And just the dominant win in the election by Donald Trump. It's a no-brainer.
Let's brainstorm this because it was Elon Musk and who else was one of the considered? Oh, it was Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, Elon Musk. Based on the list you just went through, it's not always, the positive aspects.
Again, Putin was 2007.
Couldn't you say that Joe Biden should be the runner-up here based on how the process of their campaign played out?
Or Kamala Harris.
Well, Joe Biden, though, at the debate, started all of that. It was ultimately the two candidates. And again, even if the election it turned out the opposite, you could still, I mean, it's still Donald Trump as the person of the year. If you were just in a boardroom coming up with this. Do we know how they come up with this? They don't even. They don't comment.
I haven't looked in the criteria. Is it like the Heisman voters? Do they have some
I don't know. I mean,
beat writer from Des Moines, Iowa that's voting on it?
They don't comment on the winner. They just put it on the cover, I guess.
I think they probably just get in a room and say, what's going to sell the most magazines this year and get the most people talking? Donald Trump. And in 2023, Taylor Swift. And they just go with that.
He was on Wall Street ringing the bell.
That's probably how they make the decision.
Jet,
Angela Merkel won this award back in 2015.
Conan O'Brien.
Oh, man. Yeah. Do you think that Trump's going to talk as much about white privilege as Caitlin Clark did in her time interview? Wouldn't that be a real curveball? Trump in his interview says, I also want to acknowledge that as a white man, I have a lot of privilege. And I will now want to talk about those before me. The way Caitlin Clark did?
I mean, if you want to sell this, put Trump on the cover.
Yeah.
Or Taylor Swift.
People buy magazines anymore, too. I got so many questions about Time Person of the Year. A, Hutton brings up the good question. How do they come up with the winner? Is this a consensus amongst their editors? Is it one person making the call? B, does anyone even buy magazines anymore?
They will now.
Do people go door to door and still sell? Like you can get 15 magazines for the price of one, like they did when we were growing up?
Yeah, you could go to some households and they would have a photo of Barack Obama on the wall.
Yeah.
Well, this is the same. Is this the same type? Frantic. You got to go out and get.
I can take you to some neighborhoods where you'll get a Trump picture on the wall too.
Right. Yeah. I'm saying, like, is this the new one? Again, the photo alone is legit. He's ringing the bell on Wall Street.
It's a great photo.
It's a great photo.
Whoever framed up this photo, it's really good. The only thing better would be if he still had the bandage on the ear from the assassination attempt.
He didn't wear that very long either. Have you ever noticed
that would be a remarkable look, though, to be up there talking about strength?
Dave, you can jump in if you want. Have you guys noticed how long Donald Trump's ties are? How he wears them? I mean, they are long.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you tie a tie like that.
You're not a big tie-tier either, though.
No, but I mean,
if you just mess up one little bit of the process, you can make it really long like that.
It's like down to the zipper.
I think it's almost like his is tailored to be that long.
Probably. Is that like another alpha move, Davey?
I think it's just, your preference of style. That's one that whenever he was coming up, that became a thing, and he's just stuck with it ever since.
See, look at this. It was just, I've never seen it, past the belt.
Well, what you never want is the too short of the tie. Like you had back in like the 1940s with ties, and then it makes you look fatter, like for a man. Like you want the tie to be perfect length to not make you look too fat.
Yeah. Well, is this a thinning thing?
Could be a thinning thing. Could be. And why can't there's so many people who wear things that then they come out and say, "Oh, this is fashion. This is."
No, I've long said this.
I'm setting a new trend. I'm thinking, "Oh, really? How is that exactly?" Maybe he's just setting a new trend.
So,
who determines what's in style? I want to know the person who determined that the short tie was then out of style.
Yeah, who's the tastemaker?
I don't know that. I do know that Town and Country put out an article in 2017 titled "Why Are Donald Trump's Ties So Long?" I'll let you know what I learned from this piece by Sam.
This is what I think when I watch
Dangermont.
Anything politics. I just think of what the tie, but the choice behind it. There's no doubt. Look at this. This is so funny.
I can't. Great. That should have been the photo for Time Person of the Year.
Person of the Year.
And in 88th place this year, former Vice President Mike Pence. Cracking our top 100. That's an amazing photo.
Funny.
I look at politics through the lens of promotion, and whenever I see the choices of candidates, what they're wearing in different settings, I always think about that.
It's meticulous.
Remember the Chris
not by
Farley,
them, but someone else.
The Chris Farley, David Spade movie? No, not Tommy Boy, but Black Sheep, which was not a sequel, but it was them two being themselves in a different format, where his brother was running for governor, and it was Tim Matheson, the actor, and they were like trying to decide. They were going on MTV. And he's like, it's MTV interview. You got to be cool. He's like, should I go with no tie? And he's like, no, loosen the tie.
Yeah.
And his campaign manager was making, he's like, loosen the tie. So he loosened it a bit with the jacket off. And I'm thinking, there's someone that's always considering those choices for candidates.
Yes.
The stylist.
Yes.
Says he wears Briones ties. And that's just a common thing where those ties are a little bit longer.
Okay.
The one other piece in this article by Town and Country, the issue is that Trump has a unique way of tying his ties, making the longer end significantly longer than the shorter tail. The tail is so short, in fact, that the president has to resort to Scotch tape to keep it in place. The loop on the back of a men's tie is designed for exactly this purpose, but Trump's
It's too short.
tying strategy results in a tail that's too short to reach the loop.
Interesting.
Brioni ties. I just went to shop for some.
Scotch tape.
You know, for that special someone in our lives.
Yes.
If you want to get a nice tie, you can get one anywhere that I see on the front page here. You can get a bow tie for $260, and their navy blue cashmere blend tie is $400. So
see, that's a better commemorative.
It's a $400 tie.
That's a better collector's item than like you go get your mint coin now with the president's face on it on the back. Congress.
I don't see any
Capitol Hill.
I don't see any tie that's more expensive than $400. So they're all in the $300 to $400 range, depending on which version you get.
I got the crew just running through all the photos.
You guys are crushing it today.
I know.
This is great. Look at this one, another powerful photo.
Yeah. Right.
It's not quite as good as the Mike Pence.
They're showing this dates back to his early days at The Apprentice.
Has anyone checked out the movie The Apprentice, where Sebastian Stan, Davies' guy from the MCU, plays Donald Trump?
You went and saw Gladiator too.
I did.
Brooks, man.
Legit.
It's good. I've been kind of on a movie tear lately. I watched The Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan movie with Josh Hartnett,
I don't think
where
I've
he
seen
takes his daughter to the concert, and they're trying to snuff out a serial killer at the concert, and it's him.
Is it good?
They showed all this in the trailer. There's no spoiler alerts.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty good, but it gets worse when they get out of the arena of the concert. Like a little over halfway through, like you don't see it in the trailer, but it takes you to different spots along the path.
The last one I watched,
and it gets a little worse.
Was this recent? A recent movie?
Yes.
Okay.
This was this past year.
Okay. So it was out after the one with Dave Bautista. That's the one the last.
Yeah, I saw that one too. That was pretty good. What was the one where they aged quickly on the island? That was M. Night Shyamalan too. Old. Yeah, it was old.
That was good.
That was okay. Another movie I watched recently on Netflix that I will recommend just because it's so insane is called It's What's Inside.
Yeah.
And it's about a group of college friends that get together probably 6-7 years after college. They're probably all late 20s, maybe 30 years old, the night before one of their guys' wedding. And this guy brings a game that's a tech expert, and all hell breaks loose from there. That's the log line. That's all I'm going to tell you because I don't want to spoil anything because it gets so crazy from that point on.
I'm not trying to
Is
give
it like
you...
Jumanji?
It's sort of. It's weird enough, Davey. It's a little bit like Jumanji, but much more adult and a little bit crazier with a much bigger twist in the end.
This reminds
me. It's a big twist.
We need another.
It's an M. Night Shyamalan-like twist.
We need another What is Withrow watching episode.
Yeah, the acting is not great in this movie, and you can tell it's very low budget. It's like some young person had an idea, that young filmmaker put it together, but it's a very interesting plot.
Chad and I, the only decision we make on the clothes is trying to make sure we don't wear the same color. We do sometimes. Maybe the same shirt. We have those as well.
Hutton did check with me today. Told me he was wearing black. I said I'm already in navy blue, so
speaking of which,
clash a little bit.
We taped with Will Kane earlier today for the Will Kane podcast, so check that out tomorrow, right? Drops on Fridays.
A lot of fun talking
it was great.
All things with Will.
The decision of a long tie. The decision by some aging coaches to go back to, their roots. What does this tell you, Chad?
I don't know what it's telling me other than it's fascinating because what's old is new once again. Not just Bill Belichick at 72 years old deciding to be a college coach for the first time ever. But look at what's going on around college football right now with these coaching hires. Rich Rodriguez, he is back at West Virginia. He's 61 years old. Had a ton of success there from 2001 to 2007. Really great winning percentage in his time in Morgantown in the 2000s. Scott Frost, he's not old. He's 49, but he's back at UCF. Dan Mullen, 52 years old, also not old, but back in college coaching, and he had a nice tenure as an ESPN analyst. He's coaching now at UNLV. So it's not just those guys, too. Barry Odom, he's back in college Power 5 coaching again after a stint at UNLV. 48 years old. He's at Purdue. I think a very underrated hire. He's going to do a really good job at Purdue, and he can handle the war of words with Kurt Signetti. Both those guys have big
yes.
personalities.
He fits them too.
They're going to talk shit back and forth, and it's going to be fun. In the state of Indiana, that rivalry is about to get spicy again. Bronco Mendenhall, 58 years old. Great success at BYU. Not as much success at Virginia. He's back in the state of Utah at Utah State. So many examples of this. And Hutton, when you see a Kenny Dillingham having so much success, super young guy at his alma mater, cutting edge, he's touting the guys leaving his team in the transfer portal, talking about their speed, how good of players they are. He's going out of his way to make sure they find a great landing spot. A different approach from a young guy in the world of transfer portal and NIL. You would think that all programs are going to go out and get some young whippersnapper. The Sean McVay of college football when the Rams hired Sean McVay. Cutting edge, thinks young, acts young. The only thing young about Bill Belichick is his girlfriend. Everything else about him is about as old as you can get. In that press conference today, he seemed a little bit refreshed, certainly. Talked a little bit younger. But that's not where college administrations are going. They're not going to the super young. They're going to tried and true, seasoned veterans that have had success either at that level or even specifically in the case of Frost and Rich Rod at that specific school. They've had success before. So I don't know that this is some bellwether for what we're going to see moving forward, Hutton. It's just fascinating that in this cycle, it almost feels like an NBA coaching cycle of retreads.
Well,
you're getting a lot of retread coaches being hired.
Well, they're going back to after they're getting rehired because what they thought was there was a next level that they wanted to move away from was actually the top level that they've seen in a while with these guys. The other thing that's interesting is West Virginia was used. Brian Hartline just interviewed for that job. You better believe it's to get a practice rep if Ryan Day's fired and he's in front of the board of trust. That to me is exactly why he did it.
That's some good agent work.
Well, that's yes, and you go through the process. But I mean, if West Virginia is open after this weekend, you're in line there potentially if they don't make the hire. And I think they also knew that he probably wasn't, he wasn't going to stay there very long if the job came open with Ryan Day because again, he's very popular there. He's not calling plays; he's the co-offensive coordinator with Chip Kelly. So it's not like he's got to find an offensive coordinator if you hire him or he's going to call plays as a first-time head coach. No. I think that makes a lot of sense. And Chip Kelly has said he wants to just coach ball, not be a head coach.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it known that Hartline would – I think they just turned to him at this point in the offseason, this point in the portal, all of it.
They'd want to keep it going with that talented
roster.
It's an interesting They want to keep the roster together. He's their top recruiter. So that would make a lot of sense. Here's the other thing of note, though, with this cycle of older coaches or coaches going back to the place before. That's not what we've just witnessed. Chip Kelly left a head coaching job because he hates NIL in the transfer portal and he hates running a college program. He just wants to coach ball. He wants to call offensive plays. So he bolts for Ohio State before last season. Gus Malzahn just got out before he's probably going to get fired soon from UCF to take what? An offensive coordinator position at Florida State. Nick Saban retires because he hates the direction college football is going. It's just interesting because the thought then would be, okay, you're going to need to hire a young coordinator, up and coming, with a ton of energy, that understands young people, that understands where we are in college football, and that's going to be the person to lead your program. Instead, these ADs are saying, no, let's go get an old guy who's done it before, and knowing they want to still be in it, they can know and operate this system very well too.
Yep. And, the Dan Mullen hire for UNLV, he's been sitting back doing media for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it interesting that it's UNLV who immediately turned and grabbed him. So, it's kind of like Belichick, who I don't know if he's going to have another offer than UNC. It's like that or don't coach. It could have been that. Mullen, was it last year that he was it the Syracuse job? No,
Syracuse job was mentioned.
Yes.
I don't know that he even interviewed for it, but he was definitely mentioned.
He was being mentioned for it.
I feel like there was another one, too, that was open.
UConn, maybe? There was
no, because Moore was still there.
It's been a while, yeah. I'm trying to think of what it was last year. There was another one. Point being, Mississippi State came open.
Yeah.
And that he was being mentioned there to come back. That's what it was.
That would have been a move like these, we're saying.
Yes. But he hasn't really gone all in with those, but it's UNLV. And Barry Odom's just did that. And what they've pulled off with the quarterback leaving, because of NIL and everything. I mean, it's a fascinating merry-go-round right now. And we're still, I mean, the coaching changes that could happen just through the playoff now. Who knows?
Well, and keep this in mind, too. With Barry Odom, UNLV, they lost 21-7 in a freezer of a game in Boise, Idaho. They're 14 points away from playing in the playoff. Because if they win, they're getting that 12 spot, likely. But they're going to be, right? They would have been the highest Group of 5 champion had they beaten Boise State.
Well, okay. It would be Clemson. I don't know. Would they be?
They may have had more ahead of them. But that could have been, UNLV could have been at 11-2 in the college football playoff at that spot.
Yeah, I mean, that.
Point being, whether they would have or not, Dan Mullen sees all these things and knows you can win at UNLV. And now with the playoff the way it is, if you get into one playoff, they got drilled by Army, so would not have been in consideration.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe, yeah.
He sees these jobs. He does college football scoreboard every week.
Yeah.
He knows these jobs. He talks to people.
And he knew that program.
It's a great vote of confidence in UNLV for him to say, I can win there. We can go to a playoff.
Yeah.
And if you're Dan Mullen, he's only 52. I was kind of shocked to see that. He's still only 52 years old.
And
he could get back in the Big Ten or the SEC or somewhere else if he does well at UNLV.
And had one bad year at Florida and was out. They love to have him. We heard from the fan base. We heard from football fans. We're not going to see a change last offseason at Florida. It's coming, though. Napier's going to be out, and then go 7-5. I mean, Mullen could do that. He was. He had them ranked number 1 in the country at one point at Mississippi State, which is crazy.
Now, you can't plan this way for UNLV, but it seems to me like it's starting to be kind of a relaunch spot.
Well, and
Barry Odom, right, was at Missouri, his alma mater, dropped down to be a defensive coordinator at Arkansas, took the UNLV job. He's out of there pretty quickly with some success.
Yes.
And now Dan Mullen, great coach at Mississippi State, did well at Florida for a while, gets fired, goes into TV. Now he's the head coach of UNLV. So what's going to happen in a year or two? If they do well, he's going to start getting calls to come back.
A launch forward, but it could also be that for quarterbacks with him. For the quarterbacks he's known for coaching.
Yeah.
I think there's a big advantage right now if you have the bye week. It's not just for rest, not just for practice time and advancing to the quarterfinals automatically. To me, it's with the evaluation and the chance to advance scout your opponents. And specifically, it's what really separates the haves and the have-nots beyond being able to pay players at the top level. For instance, the coaching staffs, if you go to these websites, the team websites, they'll list all the coaches on the sideline. And then there is support staff listed right below them. Here are in the top 20 for staff for any football operation right now. Clemson, Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Texas. Those are the programs in the playoff that are in the top 20 for staff that they're paying right now. Boise State, for instance, they list 28 support staff members for the coaches to turn to. SMU has 29. Georgia has 62 listed. That is a huge advantage for programs right now not having a bye. Tennessee, Texas, you've got Oregon, I'll get to in a moment, with the bye, but they're down the list on the numbers. They only have 30 compared to 62. And these may not be right smack on the dot here on what the number would be, Chad, but 62 compared to 28 for Boise State. They now have an extra week with the bye to at least get up to a level of you could take a breath, you can assign and you can delegate different things instead of having to recruit and scout ahead while preparing for a game right now, like Indiana's doing, like we're seeing with SMU with 29, Indiana with 34 support staff members. Those are the people that are in the pro personnel department that we would see in the NFL. Those are the staff members that are helping pull and bring back reports on what the game plan should be and report back to the coordinators who are out recruiting with the transfer portal. What closes December 28th? Yeah, they've got to get stuff done now if you're playing right now. So I think just looking at the numbers, Chad, there's Boise gets Penn State or SMU. Penn State is in the top 20 for staff members. So they can delegate now and still do it. Boise wouldn't be able to, I don't think. And now they can come up with a tweak to what they've shown on film. They can self-scout their own self, and I think that's a huge advantage for the start of a game, the first 15 minutes, where if you can go on the road and do something, or the neutral site where it's going to be dominated by your opponent because it's just the program and the fan base, I think, I kind of lean towards taking the points based on that aspect, that advantage, because Georgia's going to have it. Tennessee's got it. They're doing it right now anyway.
Well, and I think with Tennessee and Ohio State, I'm sure they're close, right? In amount of staffers they have.
Yeah, everyone's
so there's not
around.
really an advantage in that one. And then Oregon's probably close to both those teams.
No, they're not actually. Oregon has 30
Really?
listed on their website compared to 62. I don't like Florida. I haven't checked Florida. I just went through the teams in the playoff. Florida's got the most, right? They boast about it, like 100 something, right?
Which Steve Spurrier makes fun of them for.
Yeah. I don't know if all 100 are listed on the website. If not, then I don't go by the numbers here. I just counted each support staff member. But point being, Arizona State only lists 2. That can't be right. But that's also interesting. All your graduate assistants and stuff, that's where they put them.
I would be on the lookout for a Penn State because their route, nothing's easy for any of these teams, so I'm not trying to belittle SMU or Boise State, but of teams that are playing in that first round that could be remarkably fresh by the Final Four, by the semis, Penn State's the one to watch out for as a sleeper team to make it to that national championship game on that side of the bracket, because they could be fresher with those two opponents as opposed to a Tennessee or Ohio State who's going to have to beat the other and then go to a neutral site and likely play Oregon in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah,
and travel across the country to do so.
Yes.
And then beat the best team in America if they're going to advance to the Final Four. So just some things to look at. Hutton, I've got in front of me the top 10 most watched college football teams by the Nielsen ratings.
Okay.
All their games throughout the year. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are in the SEC. 8 of the top 10. Gigantic victory for ESPN and ABC and their rights deal to get that SEC teams for that reason.
We saw a bit of a tweak to the schedule of kickoffs.
Yep.
Maybe someone can look this up for me. What do you have the specific number, the average rating?
I do.
Team?
I have the average viewers for every game for each team.
Okay.
So I'm going to have you just throw out guesses as to who's in the top 10. Davey, feel free to jump in also.
But also, I want to compare the top game, which was Alabama, Georgia last year.
Yeah.
Let's compare that game to last year's. I'm saying like last year's big game, the highest rated game
So
was CBS.
You know the highest rated game this year, right? It just happened. Georgia and Texas were 8.6 million. Hutton, that's the third most watched game ever on ESPN ABC. Was this year, and it's more watched than Michigan, Ohio State this year. So that SEC championship is the most watched game this year. The college football playoff games are going to blow them out of the water.
But I'm saying the CBS rating compared to ESPN, and just if it worked.
So throw out guesses as to who's in the top 10.
Oh, Alabama, Georgia.
Alabama's number 3, 6.6 million. Georgia's number 1, 8.6 million. Texas is 6.4 million, number 4 nationally.
Tennessee's on there.
Tennessee's number 5, right behind Texas, but a million fewer viewers, 5.4 million. LSU's 8, 4.8 million.
What do you think, Davey? South Carolina?
Nope.
They were on there a bit.
I would say Oregon.
Oregon, no.
Oh, I was going through.
Really? There's only 2 non-SEC teams. Ohio State's number 2, 6.8 million.
Notre Dame.
And Michigan?
Michigan, number 6. Notre Dame's not on this list either. 5.2 million. Notre Dame's not in the top 10. They get their own NBC deal and all of that, but not in the top 10 nationally.
Oklahoma make it?
Oklahoma's not in.
A&M?
A&M is number 7, 4.9 million on average. We only have 2. You have 9 and 10 you haven't gotten. One is not a surprise. The other one is an absolute shocker to me.
Did you say Florida?
Shocking.
So it's not Colorado. That would be shocking.
It's 2 SEC teams that you have not named. Did you say Florida, Davey?
Yes.
Florida's number 10, 4.3 million.
You already say Ole Miss?
Ole Miss is not in it.
Wow.
I'm going to go ahead and
Oh,
say
you know
it.
what? That's Lane Kiffin would be pissed off for greatness.
I'm going to go
right
ahead and
now.
say it because you guys would never guess number 9 on the list. Kentucky, $4.5 million, right in between Florida and LSU.
So that's the average whenever they're playing.
Correct.
But they're boosted by playing Georgia, right? I'm trying to think of like
They had a night game against Tennessee.
Yeah, this is the top 10 college football teams based on viewership. This Nielsen dropped this list.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, those numbers for. I wish we had the individual games. Because the Kentucky game against Georgia had to be a massive audience because we nearly saw the upset.
They get the benefit.
13-12.
They get the benefit, and the Tennessee game at night. They get the benefit of playing Texas.
Ole Miss.
They played Texas too, so they played a lot of these teams. Number 10 Florida, number 9 Kentucky, number 8 LSU, number 7 A&M, number 6 Michigan, number 5 Tennessee, number 4 Texas, number 3 Alabama, number 2 Ohio State, number 1 Georgia. So ESPN and ABC having exclusive rights to the SEC, just from a sheer numbers perspective, is a gigantic win. Gigantic. Because even the Big Ten right now, you got Ohio State and Michigan, and no one else in the top 10.
You think they'll get to a point on the not just the SEC, the conference championship games where they don't go head-to-head with other networks? They make an agreement on that?
It's hard to do with...
For the conference championship game where if they want more money.
It's impossible to do with how much time you have in the day because...
Well, we're only down to 4 championship games as far as the power
I guess you could
conferences
stagger
go.
it better and not go right because Big Ten and SEC were pretty squared up.
Yeah.
No, Big Ten was at night.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit later.
Big Ten, ACC were pretty much, I think, a 30-minute difference.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the only one
awful.
that really interfered was
it wasn't
ACC
awful,
and Big
but
Ten.
I'm saying like I'm just thinking about the numbers.
Well, now
think
you've
about what Caitlin Clark brought number-wise for ESPN.
I think the best thing to do is have one game on Friday night, kind of like the playoff. One of the big ones. You should move the ACC game to Friday night.
If you're wanting,
there's your answer. Then it's all spread out.
That's it. Yeah.
If you want to keep the audience there for ESPN, I get you kind of have that competition, but they had that ACC championship go right in after the SEC championship,
which helped them.
Yeah, so they wanted to keep those right next to each other because they knew that audience could potentially at least carry over. And you might not flip the channel over to the Big Ten.
Yeah, the gentleman's agreement would be because CBS carried the Big Ten championship this year, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So
is Bert or not?
Friday night
Gary
ACC is on ESPN or ABC. Friday night, you keep the 11 a.m. time slot in Dallas in Jerry's World for Big 12. That goes into either the Big Ten or the SEC, and they just flip flop every year. CBS and Fox
on
and
the rotation,
ESPN
just like
the rotation.
the NFL model. Yeah. That works.
They decide who's in prime time and who's late afternoon.
I would say this year, though, with at least where Boise State was, because that being a Friday night game, did ESPN have the rights? Or that was a Fox game, right?
That was on Fox.
Yeah.
That was Fox. Does anyone else have a hard... And they had their crew there. Their big noon kickoff, Leinart and Reggie Bush were there freezing before the game on the field. Yeah. I have a hard time watching games on that turf.
I do too.
I don't know if I've got some color blindness that I've not been diagnosed with yet, but trying to find Boise State players and UNLV players on that turf, both colors were hard for me. It's difficult, especially when it's that cold.
It's not
and there's ice around the field.
I don't stick on the channel very long.
No, it's hard to watch.
There was a rule to where Oregon couldn't wear their all green at a time because Boise, they were trying to change it because with their turf being blue, I know you can't change the color of a turf anymore, but people didn't want them to be able to wear all blue on that turf.
Yeah, they laid a dude down one time. Remember that on the kickoff?
Blue Man Group. Oh, yeah. They hid someone.
And that's where everybody was outraged. Like, you got to stop this. Because they just hid someone laying flat down on the blue, and then he got up and they reversed it to him.
There's a state rep somewhere that wants to make that a felony.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
No laying on the turf.
This is going to be bipartisan support with my brother in Ohio. That's also forming felonies around things in football.
5th degree felony charge for you. Playing with theft.
You know the dude who did that in Ohio? It's just like he's drinking with his buddies, and they're like, "Hey man, you know what you should do? You should propose a bill that makes that a felony. Buckeye fans would love you if you did that."
He's going to realize that it's specific to a flagpole with a flag attached to it, and he's going to randomly go back and try to rewrite and submit this.
Oh my gosh!
Run it up. Hey,
the worst.
Let's set this up for Armando before he jumps on here.
Okay.
Presser just happened for Bill Belichick, announces the next head coach at the University of North Carolina. Got Bill Belichick wearing blue. And Bubba Cunningham The AD shows up with the sleeves cut off. Check this out. Chad, whenever we saw this, we were watching this right before the show. We're like, man, look at this. It looks like his
We
sleeves
came in after it had started,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we didn't get the explanation of them walking out. I'm like, it looked like someone cut the sleeves
I
off
said,
his
what's
jacket.
going on here? And we were looking at it from a smaller window box on the phone, and I was like, oh, that makes sense with the hoodie,
Yeah.
cut off hoodie. You think he'll dress like that on the sidelines?
I think he's
Like
going
a
to dress
homeless man?
exactly. What would be funny is if he just completely reversed course and wore a tie.
Yeah, I mean, he may wear
He starts looking like Tom Landry on the
he
sideline.
may wear old sweatshirts, like a throwback. They could sell these now.
Oh, yeah.
Here's his dad's.
There's a lot of cool gear possibility for Bill Belichick on the sideline
Here's
for
his
North
dad's
Carolina.
old sweatshirt that he brought out
That'd be good.
as a coach there.
He's on the
that's cool.
sideline in a leather helmet, Bill Belichick.
just the throwback. I mean,
Just in
or
case.
maybe he does the about face where he's embraced the media now. He was great today, by the way. I was curious if he was going to revert back to Cincinnati and he should grumble. He's happy and he's
Very
cool with
happy,
the
very
media there.
likable. He even joked. He had a long-winded answer. He says, sorry, I'm rambling here. You guys know that I'm known for my long-winded answers at press conferences, and got everyone laughing a few different times. Maybe we get a warm and fuzzy Bill Belichick.
Maybe. Here's
in
Bill
North Carolina.
Belichick discussing whether or not he's still looking for a path back to the NFL ultimately.
Bill, what do you say to people that fear that if you do succeed here, that you might leave for the NFL again in a year or two?
Yeah, I didn't come here to leave.
Yeah. Short-term contract, getting paid $30 million, $10 million per year. Didn't come there to leave, came to have success. It's very deliberate with why he wanted this job. I mean, it's the one that offered him first. But also, I mean, you just don't randomly pick out a college program like this. And he would know his plan going into NIL, recruiting, and the portal. He was asked about this.
You mentioned was you're looking forward to teaching and developing, a lot of the younger players here at UNC. Obviously, when you were in the professional realm, players, a little older, got families, things like that. What do you kind of envision and what excites you about the differences of working with, kind of those younger 19, 20-year-olds as compared to, working with some of the, older guys like you did in the NFL?
Right. Well, again, in the NFL, it's a combination of a lot of things. But if you look at the players we had in the NFL, Tom Brady was a fourth-string quarterback his rookie year. He didn't exactly come in as, with any play time at all. Gronkowski, he, didn't do too much his rookie year. Julian Edelman played quarterback in college. Then he was a wide receiver. Then he was a punt returner. So developing players is, something that Michael and I believe strongly in, and we'll support that with the staff and we'll support that with the program. There's a lot of opportunity and room for growth for all players, whether 19, 20, or honestly 22, 23. Now,
There's Belichick there. That's the key to his success at North Carolina. Scouting the way he scouted 6th and 7th round picks that he brought to New England. It sounds like Scott Turner is in the running, or he would already be at least a verbal agreement, I guess, to be the OC. He's the interim offensive coordinator right now with the Raiders. And he's North Turner's son. And he was hired by McDaniel. That's the tie-in there. Maybe McDaniel's the OC. Who knows?